Hello students, welcome to Baji IAS Academy, the Hindu News Analysis. Today we have a set of very important and relevant news articles for both prelims and mains exam perspectives. See, the first important news article is the ambiguities in the nuclear liability law. Okay, so there are few ambiguities within the nuclear liability law, and with the context of Jaitapur nuclear power plant, which is to be set up in the state of Maharashtra with the cooperation of France government. Okay, so the next important news article is virtual digital assets, India's stand and the way forward. Okay, so this will also be discussed in a very critical way. I mean, this is important because this is critical also because in recent past there has been a significant increase or boom in cryptocurrencies or digital assets. So therefore, it is imperative on the part of the government to regulate these cryptocurrencies or virtual digital assets. And as part of this article, we will discuss what is India's stand on these virtual digital currencies and what should be the way forward for India. Okay, so the third important news article is third generation web is about the public good. So as part of this article, we will discuss what is a third generation web and how it will be a public good and how it will make a difference in the rural transformation, especially the disadvantaged areas or the disadvantaged sections of the society, and how it will give a thrust to the uh, evidence-based policy making in India. And the fourth important news article is about the United Nations reform process, especially the United Nations Security Council. United Nations Security Council reform is a long pending issue, and India has been demanding, along with the other like-minded countries, that the United Nations Security Council should be reformed. Okay, for example, India, along with other countries called G4, have formed a grouping to demand United Nations Security Council reform. So, as part of this article, we will discuss what is exactly the reform process of the United Nations. And apart from that, we have a set of prelims related and prelims relevant articles also. Okay, so one is Supreme Court defines the order on eco-sensitive zones. Okay, so this is regarding with respect to the eco-sensitive zones. And the second important article is center tells states to scrap levies on power generation. Okay, so this is also to some extent important for prelims. So let's discuss the first very important news article. So this news article in the context of the Jaitapur nuclear power plant. Okay, Jaitapur nuclear power plant. So this is expected to be set up in the state of Maharashtra. Okay, but India, with I mean, the France agency or the private agency has been supplying nuclear reactors to Jaitapur nuclear power plant. However, there is an issue in supplies. The issue is India's law. India's law. The law is the Civil Nuclear Liabilities for Damages Act. Okay, this act is a major issue in the construction of the Jaitapur nuclear power plant or India's cooperation with other countries in constructing nuclear power plants, because it has been shifting the liability from the operator to the supplier of nuclear power plant. Okay, so as part of the right to recourse, because of this reason, several countries, including US, Russia, so their suppliers are not readily setting up the nuclear power plants, they're not going ahead with setting up of nuclear power plants in the in India because of the Civil Nuclear Liabilities and Damages Act. Okay, so in this context, let's try and understand what is this act and what are the concerns of the reactor suppliers countries and what international agreements are saying about this specific act. Okay, see, India's nuclear liability law. This nuclear liability law is together called as Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act 2010. Okay, so this act is the major reason for a long delay of the Jaitapur nuclear power plant. Okay, Jaitapur nuclear power plant in the state of Maharashtra. So the delay is around years, around 10 years delay or decade long delay of the Jaitapur nuclear power plant, because the suppliers have been the suppliers have been facing some issues under the Civil Liabilities Nuclear Damages Act. Okay, so that they include the liabilities will be shifted from the liabilities will be shifted from the operator of a nuclear power plant to the supplier of nuclear reactors. Okay, supplier of nuclear reactors under the right to recourse. Because of because of this reason, there has been a long delay in setting up the nuclear power plants in India. Okay, so if the nuclear power plant is implemented in India, this Jaitapur nuclear power plant, then that will be world's biggest nuclear power generation site under consideration. So this will be the world's biggest nuclear power generation site. Okay, so what is the law that governing nuclear liability in India? First, we try and understand the law that has been governing the nuclear liability in India. Okay, laws on nuclear liability that ensure the compensation is available to victims for nuclear damage. See, whenever there is an accident or a damage caused by nuclear reactors or the nuclear power plant, then the law in India provides for compensation to the victims. Okay, this law provides compensation to the victims. That means the operator have to provide compensation to the victims, or the reactor supplier have to provide compensation to the victims if they have supplied defective products. If they have supplied defective products, or they have intentionally supplied the defective reactors, and that led to the accident in India. So in this case, the liability is not just on the part of the operator, but also on the part of the supplier as well. Okay. So, however, there is an international nuclear liability regime. Okay, international nuclear liability regime. See, in the year 1986, there was a Chernobyl nuclear accident or the nuclear disaster. This is the worst nuclear disaster ever in the history of mankind. Okay, so this is a worst nuclear disaster in the year 1986. This is followed by the Fukushima nuclear power accident in Japan. Okay, so after that, there has been a strengthened nuclear liability regime across the world internationally. Okay, that has been further strengthened. So keeping in line with the nuclear liability regime internationally, the government of India brought or the government of India passed a Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act. Okay, so please remember this act, Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act, in the year 2010. Okay, so this act envisioned or aimed at the speedy compensation. This act aimed at speedy compensation to the victims of a nuclear disaster or a nuclear accident. Okay, so this is what this article has been saying. However, along with that, the Civil Liabilities for Nuclear Damages Act also provides for the strict and no fault liability on the part of the operator. Okay, so whoever the operator may be. In the case of India, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited is the operator of majority of the nuclear reactors in India. So therefore, this law, CLNDA law, okay, so this law provides for a very strict and no fault liability on the part of the operator. Okay, so in case of any disaster or an accident, the operator have to pay the damages or they pay the compensation to the victims. It is regardless of any fault on its part, even though there is no fault on its part, but the operator have to pay the damages or the compensation to the victims. Okay, however, please remember this act specifies the amount also. Okay, this act specifies the total amount should be payable by the operator to the victims. Okay, so what is the total amount? The total amount is around 1500 crores will be the liability of an operator. Okay, so 1500 crore will be the liability of an operator, and the operator have to pay this amount to the victims of nuclear disaster or the nuclear accident. Okay, so what happened if the sum is, if the damage is the more than 1500 crore, or if the compensation exceeds the 1500 crore? So in that case, the act, the CLNDA Act also mandates that if the compensation amount, if the damage amount exceeds the 1500 crore, then the center or the union government will contribute 300 million SDR. Okay, this government will the union government will contribute 300 million SDR. That amounts to around 2100 to 2300 crore. Okay, so together, both the center and the nuclear operator, so only 1500 crore for the operator. In case the amount exceeds 1500 crore, then a 300 million will be provided by the center. So that amounts to around 2100 to 2300 rupees, 3 crore rupees. Okay, so apart from this, so we have seen different provisions of CLNDA legislation. So apart from that, the act, the CLNDA legislation also specifies that the limitations on the amount. So what are the limitations? What will be the limitation and the time when will be the compensation provided by the operator? Okay, so when the compensation will be provided by the operator, and when will be action taken against operator if he did not, or if he does not pay the compensation, if he does not pay the compensation amount to the victims. Okay, however, please remember, India so far have a 22 nuclear reactors. Okay, India so far have 22 nuclear reactors. Sorry. So India so far have 22 nuclear reactors. So with over a dozen more projects to be, they are in the planning stage. One include the Chaitapur nuclear power plant. Okay, so this is also in the planning stage. Apart from like Kovada nuclear plant power plant, that is also located in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so India currently has 22 nuclear reactors with over a dozen more projects and to be planned. So all the 22 nuclear reactors, okay, please remember, all the 22 nuclear reactors are at present operated by the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited. Okay, so this is the public sector limited, and this is entrusted with the responsibility of operating all the 22 nuclear reactors in India. Okay, now understand the liability issues, the supplier liability. We have understood the operator liability. Okay, we have understood the operator liability and how the government will contribute in case the cost exceeds the 1500 crore rupees. Okay, 1500 crore rupees. So understand what will be the supplier liability. Who are the supplier in this case? The supplier will be France. Okay, France is a supplier, Japan, if we cooperating with Japan, Russia is a supplier, and the USA is also a supplier. Okay, so they are not operator, but they are supplier. So what is the supplier liability, and why these countries are not showing interest, or they are reluctant to supply nuclear reactors to India? Why these nuclear power plants projects have been delayed is because of few reasons. Okay, so the reasons include, please understand, section 10 of the CSE. What is CSE? CSE is a comprehensive convention. The convention is about the Convention on Supplementary Compensation. Please remember, this is a convention on supplementary 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 compensation. Okay, right. So this convention has laid down two conditions under which a national law, like we have a CLNDA Act. Okay, CLNDA Act. So in the same way, different countries have a different laws within their territorial jurisdictions. Okay, within their territorial jurisdiction. So in this case, the Convention on Supplementary Compensation lays down, that is, the convention is regarding the international nuclear regime. Okay, so it is all about the international nuclear regime, and the convention lays down two conditions. Okay, the convention lays down two conditions. So what are those conditions? And the conditions include a country may provide the operator with the right to recourse. So please understand what is right to recourse. Right to recourse. See, we have discussed earlier, we have discussed that as per the CLNDA Act 2010, in case uh, a nuclear accident or a nuclear disaster takes place, then the operator should pay a compensation of 1500 crore. Okay, the operator should pay the compensation of 1500 crore. So, in case in case the operator believes that the supplier, in this case France, okay, in case the supplier supplied a defective product or defective reactors, okay, defective reactor, or they have supplied the defective product with intention of causing damage or disaster in a particular country, then the convention, this convention on supplementary compensation allows the country like India to invoke the right to recourse. So, right to recourse, what happens? The liability from the supplier, the liability from the operator will be will be shifted to the supplier. Okay, so this liability will be shifted to supplier in case they have supplied defective products and they have an intention to cause damage or disaster in a particular country. Then the liability will be shifted to the supplier, and this has been provided by the Convention on Supplementary Compensation. Okay. However, India have gone beyond these two conditions. So yes, India incorporated these two conditions in its CLNDA Act, but along with that, India have India have gone beyond these two conditions. Okay, because for the first time, India introduced the concept of the supplier liability also. So along with the operator liability, and India also introduced in its law the supplier liability. Okay, supplier liability. Okay, so supplier liability over and above the Civil Nuclear Liability Act. So in this law, India also introduced this liability for suppliers. Okay. However, whoever framed the law, the CLNDA law, so whoever framed this law, so they have recognized that the supplier may send a defective product. The supplier may send a defective product to country like India. Okay. See, this is from the experience of the Bhopal tragedy. Okay, Bhopal industrial tragedy or industrial accident in the year 1984. Because of defective products in this industry, that has resulted in a large scale disaster. So, because of this experience, the Bhopal experience, the architects of the CLNDA Act have made the supplier also liable for the damages or any accident in India. Okay, so apart from the contractual right of recourse, so we have discussed what is a right of recourse. Okay, so right of recourse we have already discussed. So apart from this right of recourse, wait, sorry. So uh, uh, apart from the right to recourse, uh, when an intent to cause damage, this is the first thing, and secondly, if they send any defective products. So section 17b of CLNDA, section 17 of uh, CLNDA provides for that, states that operator of the nuclear power plant, after paying their share of compensation for damage in accordance with the act, shall have the right to recourse. Okay, so in this case, the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited shall have the right to recourse after paying their share. Okay, after paying their share, and the liability will be shifted to supplier as per the section 17b of CLNDA Act. Okay. Now, the nuclear accident has resulted in a consequence of an act of supplier or an employee, so which includes the supply of equipment or material that is actually damaged or substandard services. Okay. So now, in this case, what happens is Section 79B make sure that the supplier is also um, responsible. Okay, supplier is also liable for the nuclear damage or the nuclear accident which has been taken place, and Section 17B outrightly provides for that. So why is the supplier liability clause an issue in the nuclear deals? So we have a nuclear deals with US, Japan, Russia, France. Okay, then why is an issue? Why is an issue between all these countries, between India and the US, India and France, India and Russia? So the main reason within the nuclear or the supplier liability is uh, foreign suppliers of nuclear equipment from countries as well as domestic suppliers. So they have been wary of, or they are fearful of operationalizing nuclear deals with India. Okay, so they are fearful of operationalizing nuclear deals with India because India is the only country that has the law where suppliers can be asked to pay for damages. Okay, so India is the only country where the suppliers also can ask for the payment of damages. Okay, however, the concerns about potentially getting exposed to unlimited liability. Okay, we have discussed that 1500 crore rupees compensation need to be paid by the operator. Okay, so there is a probability that the supplier may pay more than this. Okay, so getting exposed to the unlimited liability in case based on the scale of damage which generally takes place. Okay, it is based on the scale of damage which generally takes place. Okay, right. So because of getting exposed to that unlimited liability as part of the civil liabilities for nuclear damages act, and the ambiguity also over how much insurance to set aside in case of a damage or in case of an accident, because of these factors, this supplier liability clause in the Indian legislation is a cause of concern for these suppliers. However, what is the government stand on this? Okay, so what is the government stand on this? So, central government, the union government maintained that Indian law is in consonance with CSE. So, what is CSE? CSE is part of international nuclear regime. Okay, international nuclear regime. This is Convention on Supplementary Compensation. Okay, so Government of India says it is in consonance with the CSE. So along with that, Section 17B says that whenever operator, whenever an operator signing an agreement or a contract with a supplier, say for example with France, so it is not mandatory on the part of the operator, or it is not mandatory on the part of the operator as per Section 17B to make sure the supplier uh, pay the liabilities. It is not required, but it is just permits that. The Section 17B permits that. Okay. However, experts saying that the legal experts have pointed out that a plain reading of Section 17 of CLNDA, okay, the Civil Liabilities and Nuclear Damages Act. So this act suggests that those suppliers, the reactor suppliers, foreign or domestic reactor suppliers, are exposed to the liabilities in case of a damage or in case of a disaster. Even if they supply a damaged or defective nuclear reactors or intentionally tried to damage, or in any way, in case a nuclear damage or the nuclear accident takes place in India, they will be liable, or they are accountable for the damage or the disaster. So on the other hand, yes, the government of India is saying that the provision just permits but does not require or does not make it mandatory. But on the part of the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, this is the operator, the public sector operator. Whenever it has been signing a contract, then of course this will also introduce a concept called the supplier liability. Okay, so they will not sign any contract without the supplier liability. So therefore, because of these reasons, Indian nuclear power plant, you know, their setting up, the implementation has been uh, delayed for several years to decades. Okay, this is all about this article. Okay, let's look at the next important article. So yeah, actually, before looking at the next important article, see some of the nuclear power plants in India. Okay, so these nuclear power plants are very important for a prelims examination. UPSC may ask a question that which of the following nuclear power plants are located in the respective states, or uh, which of the following is common to given states, for example Jaitapur, Kovada, Mitwarti. So which of the following is common to above given the cities or the names. Okay, just please go through carefully all these nuclear power plants, places where they are located or states where they are located. Okay, the next important news article is virtual digital assets, India's stand and way forward. Okay, so what are the virtual digital assets? Okay, first understand the virtual digital assets. So virtual digital assets are cryptocurrencies. The best example is a cryptocurrency is a form of virtual digital currency. So they are run on the decentralized platforms, and they are also virtual currencies, and they also uh, run on the blockchain. Okay, they also run on the blockchain, and the central banking banks have no regulatory jurisdiction over these virtual digital assets. So why this article is important? Why? What is the context of this article? Is recently the Ministry of Finance brought a notification. The notification says that all the virtual digital assets transactions will be covered under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay, so therefore, uh, it makes sure that the virtual digital assets are not used for illegal activities like terror financing. Okay, terror financing and drug trafficking and money laundering activities. So it should not be used for such activities. So in this context, first we'll try and understand what is a virtual digital asset. Okay. Now, uh, what is a cryptocurrency? Understand what is a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a virtual currency whose a single unit is a complex digital code. Okay. See, this virtual digital currency cannot be duplicated, and it is used as a digital asset as a medium of exchange. Okay, so this will be used as a digital asset, and it will be also used as a medium of exchange. In recent past, there were several countries which have been accepting Bitcoin. Okay, which have been accepting Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Medium of exchange. So in this context, it is very important for regulating the bitcoins, because there's no, the central banks cannot control the bitcoins. So therefore it is very important to have a comprehensive regulation, not just at the national jurisdiction level, but also at the international jurisdiction level also. So for example, the status of the cryptocurrencies in India does not yet have a policy recognizing or regulating the cryptocurrencies. India so far have no such policy of recognizing or regulating cryptocurrencies. However, April 2018, the Reserve Bank of India banned the banking on cryptocurrencies. Okay. In India also there are several coins like Lakshmi coin. So they are Lakshmi coin. So generally, Reserve Bank of India banned banking system from crypto transactions. However, in the year 2020, Supreme Court reversed this ban. So this ban, this is part of Article 19 of the Indian Constitution. So profession, free to take up any profession. So therefore, the Supreme Court reversed the decision of the RBI, and that triggered to a massive boom in the use of cryptocurrencies. Okay. However, what experts have been saying on this cryptocurrency is experts fear that the crypto boom could draw a significant amount of household savings. Okay. See, the value of cryptocurrencies is not stable. Okay, the value of cryptocurrency is not stable, and they generally run with a speculative motive. So therefore, there is a huge volatility in the value of these cryptocurrencies. Therefore, there is a probability that the household savings would be lost if invested, and that would lead to the significant financial losses for common investors or the households. Now, first, try and understand this article, this editorial. Okay, so we have already discussed that the Union Finance Ministry recently issued a notification. The notification says that all the digital assets, virtual digital asset activities will come under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay, so, so what are the activities which come under the part of Prevention of Money Laundering Act? Include these activities. So the activities like exchange between virtual digital assets, fiat currencies, exchange between one or more forms of virtual digital assets, transfer of virtual digital assets. So all these categories will be part of the Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay. However, so these said activities will now have to register as a reporting entity. Okay. So whatever the activities which have been mentioned above will be registered with the Financial Intelligence Unit. So, right, the Financial Intelligence Unit is also very important. Please remember this. The Financial Intelligence Unit is with the is under the administrative jurisdiction of Ministry of Finance. Okay, it is under the administrative jurisdiction of Ministry of Finance. So, what is the role and responsibility of the Financial Intelligence Unit? Is the unit is the national agencies to strengthen India's approach against money laundering, terror financing. So there were events of terror financing, money laundering. Okay, so this Financial Intelligence Unit strengthened India's efforts against money laundering and terror financing. Okay, however, there are several reporting entity platforms. So what are those reporting entity platforms? For example, there are several agencies like CoinSwitch. Okay, CoinSwitch. So they are just a mediator between buyers and sellers. A mediator, they work as a mediators between buyer and sellers. So they have all the transaction information. Okay, in case any suspicious activity, they can immediately report such a suspicious activity with the Financial Intelligence Unit. So therefore, if there is any possibility of terror financing, using cryptocurrencies for terror financing or using it for money laundering, can be easily tracked or monitored by the Financial Intelligence Unit or the government. Okay, so along with that, the government of India introduced few reforms in the digital assets, virtual digital assets. They are virtual, now your customer. So now your customer is also very mandatory, and apart from that, maintaining record and monitoring all transactions, and should be reported to the Financial Intelligence Unit in case of any suspicious activity is detected. Okay, so this is actually welcomed across the industry who are in the virtual digital currency sector, and this is a step in the right direction. Okay, however, what are the benefits or the advantages of bringing under the ambit of Prevention of Money Laundering Act? Okay, so what are the larger benefits or the uses, advantages of bringing all these virtual digital currencies under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act? So the benefits include the framework, okay, the framework to diligently monitor and take actions against malpractices. If there were any malpractices reported in the transactions of virtual digital currencies, okay, so those malpractices will be effectively tackled by the government with the help of the Financial Intelligence Unit and the reporting entity platforms. And the second advantage will be making Indian virtual digital asset sector more transparent. Okay, so more transparent means the transactions will not be used for illegal activities. The transactions will not be used for illegal activities, terror financing, money laundering, buying drugs, or purchasing arms. Okay, this will be more transparent, and it will also build confidence and assurance in the ecosystem. So whatever the virtual currency ecosystem we have, and it will build confidence and assurance within the ecosystem and give the government more oversight. Okay, so we have discussed that the Financial Intelligence Unit make it mandatory to implement now your customer. So therefore, it gives the government more oversight on virtual digital asset transactions. Okay, finally, it will be a win-win situation, a win-win situation for all the stakeholders, government, and the reporting entity platforms, and people who are investing in virtual digital currency assets. For all of us, or for all of them, it is a win-win situation. Now understand, so we have discussed everything about the virtual digital currencies. However, recently Government of India have imposed taxes, higher taxes on the transactions or profits made from the virtual digital uh, assets. Okay, virtual digital assets. So in this article, the author has been suggesting that the government there is a need to reconsider high tax rates since there were efforts on the part of the government to bring more transparency within the virtual digital assets. So therefore, the government should reduce the taxes on virtual assets, virtual asset service providers. See, a virtual asset service provider is one who play a key role in regulating, monitoring the virtual digital asset ecosystem. So they play a very key role, and the virtual asset service providers are most efficient bridges and eyes for regulators for effectively implementing anti-money laundering or countering, combating, financing terrorism activities. So, virtual asset service providers are one. For example, they are also act as a mediators between buyers and the sellers. So, therefore, they will be a bridge. Okay, they will be a bridge and eyes for regulators to effectively implement anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism, or combating financing of terror principles. Okay, through the latest Prevention of Money Laundering Act notification, India too acknowledged the role of virtual asset service providers. Okay, so since India has recognized the role of virtual asset service providers, there is a need to reduce the tax rate. Okay, there is a need to reduce the tax slabs on the virtual asset service providers so that the sector would become more competitive and sector would become more efficient within India because the Prevention of Money Laundering Act notification now mitigating the most critical money laundering. So earlier there are concerns with these virtual digital assets, but when the government brought all of them under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, there is a very lower risk. Okay, so there will be a very lower risk. So since it has a very lower risk, there is a need to, there is a reason for the tax rates to be lower. Okay, so tax rates need to be reduced. However, there is an opportunity to bring virtual digital asset taxes on par with other asset classes. So there are other asset classes also, for example, the real estate sector. So in the same way, the virtual digital assets taxes should also be brought in par with the asset classes. So apart from that, reducing tax arbitrage vis-a-vis with other economies will also help them, prevent flight of capital from India, talent, investment, or consumers. So overall, the article has been suggesting there is a need to reduce the tax rate on the virtual digital assets. However, we all know that this year India holds the presidency of G20 summit. Okay, India holds the presidency of G20 summit. So, in this context, it is an opportunity for India. It is an opportunity for India to bring all the countries together, develop a comprehensive regulatory framework towards the cryptocurrencies or the virtual digital assets. Okay, recently we have discussed European Union passed a law, MICA. Okay, so what is a MICA? Markets in crypto assets. So European Union passed, and also uh, Japan and South Korea also have, they also established a license virtual asset service providers in their respective countries. Okay, because of these reasons, a progressive regulatory framework will instill animal spirit and India's innovation or innovative economy and establish India's virtual digital assets leadership. Okay, so this is all about the virtual digital assets and India's role in virtual digit assets. That strengthening the regulatory framework, government facilitate the virtual digital assets, and also make sure that their taxes will be reduced and bring them on par with other asset classes. Okay, next look at the next very important news article. See, this news article is regarding the uses or the advantages of Web 3 and Web 3.0. So how these two thing will be used? The technology advancements will be used for the rural advancement. Okay, rural advancement, and the schemes which we have already formulated, the schemes which we have already formulated, and the data or the evidence which we generate using Web3 and Web 3.0, how it can be effectively used. All the things are discussed in this article in a very effective way. So first understand what makes Web 3.0 unique. It may The following factors make Web 3.0 unique. So they include the ubiquity. Okay, so every device will be connected to the network and content be accessible by various applicants. And secondly, it enhances the connectivity, and it also leads to the peer-to-peer networks. And there will be a 3D graphics, virtual reality, and it will be more realistic, natural looking, and graphics are extensively used. So apart from that, there will be a semantic web. Okay, so that understands the content rather than focusing on keywords and numbers. So finally, artificial intelligence also. So these are all make the Web 3.0 is Web 3.0 more unique. So now understand there is a pervasive notion. Okay, so there is a general notion that the Web 3.0, the Web 3.0 is all about gaming and crypto assets. Okay, so this is the pervasive notions, but not true, because the crypto assets have because the Web 3.0 have other potential applications. Okay, this will have other potential applications. This is evident from the fact that in 2001 there was a report from US India Strategic Partnership Forum States. Okay, so this report says that the third generation web, okay, the third generation web uh, will be crucial for India realizing 1.1 trillion digital asset opportunity by the year 2032. Okay, so web 3 will play a crucial role in realizing 1.1 trillion digital asset opportunity by the year 2032. Okay, so understand the difference between web 3 and Web 3.0. Okay, so some experts term the third generation web as Web 3, while others term it as Web 3.0. Okay, so what are the applications of Web 3? So Web 3 is a decentralized, privacy oriented, blockchain driven, and crypto asset friendly. Okay, so this is more these are the some of the characteristics of Web 3. So what about Web 3.0? So Web 3.0 upholds the property of the semantic web. Okay, so what is the property of the semantic web? Actually, it is powered by the artificial intelligence, but the property of semantic web is that the information available, it combines the information available in across the different websites. Okay, so available on different websites and generate a new content. Okay, so that will this will process the information and generate new content and knowledge resources that are more authentic and creative. Okay, so this is the basic and the actual difference between Web 3 and Web 3.0. Okay, so of the two variants, Web 3 seeks to radically transform out of among the Web 3 and Web 3.0. Web 3 seeks to radically transform the manner in which data is generated, data is monetized, shared, and circulated. So all these aspects, Web 3 radically alter this. So Web 3 has a file sharing system such as interplanetary file system. Okay, so Web 3 has a file sharing system. So sharing files from one network to the other network, and it has a file sharing system. The file sharing system name is interplanetary file sharing system. So this is a cryptographically protected. Okay, this is protected and it will be more secure, capable and it can function of the internet and of the blockchain. Okay, so without the blockchain plus without internet, it can function more efficiently and effectively. Okay, so in this manner, Web3 can effectively overcome the data and the storage barriers which are normal in the blockchain technology. However, how India can benefit from Web3? Okay, how India can benefit from Web3. So the article has been saying that India's handicraft industry has been generating more design related innovations. So right, we the handicraft industry in India generating several design related innovations in the recent past. However, many of those design related innovations are not protected under the IP regime. Okay, so they are generally not protected under the IP regime. However, the Web3 makes that the digital tokens are minted for these design related innovations. Okay, the digital tokens are minted for these uh, design related innovations, and that would enable our handicraft enterprises to secure those innovations. And whatever innovation, whatever design related innovations which already uh, you know uh, which already in the already made by these handicraft industry, that will be secured through a Web3. Okay, now Web3 based instruction tools enable the rapid dissemination of grassroots innovations. So grassroots level, there are at there are at several levels there were innovations also. Now Web3 based instruction tools enable the rapid dissemination of grassroots innovation from master artisans to fellow members. Okay, and that would improve the economic fortunes. Once their innovations are tokenized, once their innovations are recognized, then that would result in economic fortunes for the craftsmen and artisan communities in different parts of our country, right? So therefore, it has the Web3 has a huge applications and a huge potential. Okay, so in this context, also understand India's major digital public infrastructure push and large scale deployment of Internet of Things. Okay, large scale deployment of Internet of Things and development of digital public infrastructure in rural development projects offer possibilities of deploying Web3 in rural areas. Okay, there is a possibility of deploying Web3 in rural areas as part of the government policy programs. So Atal Bhujal Yojana, this is one such program where the government planned to revive or the rejuvenate the groundwater levels and the aquifers. Okay, we know about Atal Bhujal Yojana. Now, Atal Bhujal Yojana is an important source of data. Okay, so this provides data regarding the groundwater levels and the aquifer levels in different parts of the country, and also the groundwater utilization practices, aquifer contamination. So, although this resource remain largely untapped. Why it is largely untapped? Because the communities have no capabilities, inadequate capabilities to use such a resource in a more effective and efficient manner. However, Web3 have the capability to overcome such inefficiencies or such inadequacies. Okay, so whatever data generated through Atal Bhujal Yojana and understanding the groundwater utilization practices in different parts of the country will be effectively understood by the Web3 platform or the Web3 uh, design. Okay, so Web 3.0 can also yield insights from a large volumes of community data. For example, a particular community, whether it is about implementing government policies, practices within the community, so everything can be recorded by these Web 3.0, and it will also provide insights in a large volumes about the community data, and that is generated by Internet of Things, and that enable the community development programs such as Jal Jeevan Mission. Also understand the Web 3.0's natural advantage of facilitating analytics at edge. So it provides a scope for mapping the water use habits of communities. So Web 3.0 provides a considerable scope for mapping the water use habits of communities. Similarly, Web 3.0 Web 3.0 also provides for early warning systems for floods. Okay, not just water use habits of communities, but it also provides information on early warning systems for floods, which further improve with the 3.0. Okay, so which further improves with the Web 3.0 due to data analytics facilities uh, being obtained at the sub-basin level. Okay, the Web 3.0 will have a transformative role in regionally disadvantaged sections. So there are regionally disadvantaged sections, backward regions. So this will play a transformative role in those areas, because why it plays a transformative role. See, we have deployed Web 3 and Web 3.0. Okay, Web 3.0, and we also have a different government schemes and government programs. For example, Jal Jeevan Mission is one such program. Okay, when we have data about this scheme and a comprehensive data on this scheme, then there will be a tweaking in the policies. Okay, evaluation of policies will be better. So therefore, area specific policies would be undertaken by the government. So therefore, Web 3 and Web 3.0 will have a transformative role in regionally disadvantaged areas. However, it is not free from the constraints. So one such constraint is there is an inability of data analytics capabilities. Okay, so data analytics capabilities, there is an inability to catch up, because there has been a huge generation of data. Okay, so there has been a huge data. On the other hand, our data analytics capabilities are limited. So therefore, the government has been focusing on rapidly expanding the pool of data analytics. Okay, rapidly expanding the pool of data analytics and web design talent. Okay, web design talent, so that these challenges can be successfully overcome. We can successfully overcome these challenges. Okay, so government has been providing incentives for decentralized analytics and tokenizing innovations. Now it is possible to draw upon the talent pool for the benefit of rural communities. Okay, so there is a possibility to draw or to develop such a talent pool to benefit our rural communities. So this is all about this article. The next very important news article, we very often hear about United Nations Security Council, Security Council reforms. Okay, so now India has been advocating for the reforms of the United Nations Security Council so long, because the United Nations Security Council is not representing the current realities. Okay, it is not at all representing the current realities. It has been representing the post World War II realities only. Post World War II realities only. In fact, India is a country with the largest population in the world. Okay, with the largest population in the world. India is the largest democracy in the world. India have been contributing for the United Nations peacekeeping force. India have never attacked any country in its history after independence. Okay, never attacked any country after. Uh, uh, India has a huge cultural diversity. Okay, cultural diversity. Apart from that, India in terms of GDP, so in India in terms of GDP, the fifth largest economy. Okay, the fifth largest economy. In terms of purchasing power parity, India is the third largest economy. Okay, so third largest economy. So therefore, all these factors have been, strengthening India's bid for a permanent membership to United Nations Security Council. So, in this context, United India's representative to the United Nations, Ruchika Kamboj, says that UN system become more anachronistic. UN system has not, provided representation to underrepresented people. For example, India, and no representation in Africa and South America as well. Okay, so in this context, we'll try and understand what is United Nations Security Council, what is P5, etc. Okay, now let's try and understand. See, United Nations Security Council has 15 members. Okay, five of them, P5 countries. They are known as P5 countries: US, China, Russia, UK, France. Okay, Russia, UK, France. So these are five permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, and they are veto wielding nations. Okay, they have a veto power. On the other hand, there are 10 non-permanent members elected for a 2 year. So there are 10 non-permanent members elected for 2 year term. So India has served as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for 8 times. Okay, 8 times. See here, the 10 elected or non-permanent members have a tenure of 2 years and no veto rights. So this makes them a toothless grouping. So remaining 10 members does not have any veto power. So therefore, it is also said that they become a toothless grouping. Now understand the G4. What is G4? G4 is a grouping of India, Japan, Germany, and Brazil. So they are demanding the expansion of the United Nations Security Council. Okay, so they also want the inclusion of these G4 countries into the United Nations Security Council. Now, in 1992, Brazil, India, Germany, Japan stake their claims demanding inclusion in the permanent members. Okay, so they want that they should be included in the permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. However, India is a founding member of the United Nations. India is the second largest population. Now, India is the first country in terms of population. India's world's largest democracy and has also contributed to the maximum peacekeepers to the UN. Okay, out of total peacekeepers, India has the maximum number of peacekeepers in the United Nations peacekeeping force. Okay, now Brazil is the largest country in the Latin America and unrepresented continent, the fifth largest in the world. Right, so this is the fifth largest in the world. Japan and Germany, one of the largest donors, okay, largest financial donors to the UN system. So besides G4 countries, there is another country, that is South Africa. African continent is not at all represented in the United Nations Security Council. So therefore, uh, uh, South Africa is also a candidate for the membership of UN Security Council permanent membership. However, there is a roadblock to that, Article 108 and Article 109 of the United Nations. So, United Nations Charter Article 108 and Article 109 says that a P5 veto, I mean the Charter grant P5 veto over amendments to the Charter. So, requiring them to approve any modifications to the UNSC. See, whatever, if there are any modifications to the United Nations Security Council, must be approved by all the members of the P5 countries. Even if one country vetoed the reform or the modification of the UN Charter, then this will not be implemented. Okay, so apart from that, so even if one P5 member doesn't agree to any reform, the UNSC cannot be reformed. Okay, now understand UN Security Council. Okay, so this is one of the six principal organs of the UN, and this was established in the year 1945 as per UN Charter. The headquarters of the UN Security Council is in New York. Okay, membership of the United Nations Security Council, total 15 members, 5 permanent members, and 10 are non-permanent members. And these non-permanent members are elected for 2 year term. Okay, they are elected for 2 year term. The P5 countries we already know who are the P5 countries. Okay, the presidency of the United Nations Security Council rotates every month among the 15 members. So India's presidency was in the 2022 December. Okay, now understand the voting power. One member, one vote, and P5 members additionally have a veto power. Members of UN, so UN Security Council participate without vote. Okay, now India and UNSC, India and United Nations Security Council. See, this part is very important for mains exam. So, what are the strengths? What are the points which strengthen India's candidature for United Nations Security Council? So, India served 7 times as a non-permanent member. Okay, non-permanent member. Apart from this, it has elected the eighth time as well. Now, arguments for permanent seat. So, 43 peacekeeping missions so far India participated in. Active participation in formulating United Nations Human Rights Declaration. Okay, United Nations Human Rights Declaration. So India's total population, territorial size, GDP, economic potential, cultural diversity, political systems, all make India a strong, India's candidature uh, for the United Nations Security Council more and more strengthened. Okay, so G4 countries, we already know which of the following are G4 countries. G4 countries include Brazil, Germany, Japan, and India. Okay, so they advocate each other's bid for permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council. So in this context, we should also understand the Coffee Club. Okay, Coffee Club or United for Consensus movement. So informally known as the Coffee Club. This club is informally known as Coffee Club, and countries oppose expansion of the permanent seat of UNSC. For example, the prime movers of the club include Italy, Spain, Australia, Canada, South Korea, Argentina, and Pakistan. For example, Italy and Spain opposing Germany's candidature. Pakistan, of course, opposes India's bid. Argentina opposes Brazil's bid. Australia opposes the Japanese bid. Okay, so there are few major challenges for United Nations Security Council. The major challenges include usual UN rules don't apply to UNSC deliberations, and no records of meetings kept. Okay, so deep polarization within the P5, and also inadequate representation to countries, continents in Asia, Africa, and South America. Okay, so these are the major challenges of United Nations Security Council. Now let's try and understand. The Supreme Court modifies order on exclusive economic zone. Okay, this is regarding exclusive economic eco-sensitive zone. Sorry, so this is regarding eco-sensitive zone. Okay. See, this is in the context of earlier in the year 2022, June month, Supreme Court held that around the protected areas. Okay, protected areas. What are the protected areas? Protected areas are national parks, biosphere reserves, wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, so these are the protected areas. So around these protected areas, okay, around these protected areas, there should be around these protected areas, there should be 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer of buffer zone in the so recognizing as eco-sensitive zone. Okay, so therefore 1 kilometer of buffer zone make sure that these fragile nature of these uh, ecosystems would be protected. However, governments like Kerala, and even Center also have filed a petition challenging this order of the Supreme Court, because in several protected areas, people are there are several habitations of the people, even it is tribals or indigenous people. So therefore, this will lead to the mass displacement of people. Okay, this will lead to the mass displacement of people, and that will further create the rehabilitation challenges. Okay, the rehabilitation challenges. So therefore, the Supreme Court changed or modified its order of 1 kilometer buffer area. So 1 kilometer of buffer area. Now Supreme Court held that whether 1 kilometer of buffer area or less than that will be based on protected area specificity. Okay, based on area specific nature, the buffer zone would be declared or would be considered. Okay. However, even though the Supreme Court liberalized this, but Supreme Court not permitted mining within the national park and wildlife sanctuaries within an area of 1 kilometer across the boundary of national park wildlife sanctuary, and it will not be permissible or permitted. Okay, uh, mining will not be permitted within the 1 kilometer of national parks, biosphere reserves, and wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, so this is all about this article, and also look at what is an eco-sensitive zone. Okay, so eco-sensitive zone creates a buffer zone around the protected areas. Okay, so imagine this is a national park. Okay, this is a national park, and national park around a buffer zone of some area. So okay, so this is around 100 meters, at least minimum it should be 100 meters, and maximum should be 10 kilometers. Okay, maximum extent should be 10 kilometer. Please remember this. Okay, this is about eco-sensitive zones. And what are the activities which restricted in the eco-sensitive zones? Restriction, construction is restricted, industries is restricted, and the developmental projects, hydroelectricity, okay, roads, highways, railways will also be restricted in the eco-sensitive zones. And it also restricts pollution and the restriction on surface water, etc. Okay, so these are some of the restrictions which generally imposed on the eco-sensitive zones. However, there are several national parks which are covered under the eco-sensitive zones in the Western Ghats. Okay, so what are those areas? It includes Bannerghatta National Park, Gundekota Sloth Bear Sanctuary, Ramadevara Bhatta Wildlife Sanctuary. All these are in Karnataka, state of Karnataka. Okay, Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary, Nugu Wildlife Sanctuary, Kudremukh National Park, etc. Okay. Now, the last very important article is Center tells states to scrap levies on power generation. Okay. See, this article is all about state governments imposing power, imposing cess or taxes, cess or taxes on power generation within their respective jurisdictions. Okay. So the center says that it is unconstitutional or illegal. It is unconstitutional or illegal states imposing taxes or cess on power generation, because it is not in the domain of the respective state governments to impose such taxes on power generation. It is the domain of the central government. So therefore, the state government should not impose water usage cess or taxes on power generation. Okay, so this article says that the center has written to chief secretaries warning against imposing levies on generation of power. Okay, they are imposing levies on generation of power. So it stresses there are no provisions in the constitution enabling states to, in fact, there is no constitutional provision. Okay, there is no constitutional provision within the constitution which has been enabling or mandating the state governments to impose such levies or taxes on power generation companies. And it also flags the fact that some states have imposed taxes in the guise of water cess. Okay, the use of water, a cess on the use of water for generating electricity. So this is also illegal plus arbitrary. So this is also illegal plus arbitrary, right? So it terms as illegal and unconstitutional. Levy has to be collected from consumers who may be residents of other states. Okay, because when a state government imposing levy on power generation, the state government has been collecting taxes from people who are not residing in the respective state, but they are the residents of other states. See why this article is very important. At least one question in every year UPSC asks from either solar energy or no conventional energy sources. So in this context, UPSC may ask a question that state governments may tax or levy taxes on the power generation within their respective jurisdictions. But it is wrong, because why it is wrong? There is no constitutional provision which enabling the state governments to tax the respective power generation. So these are all very important news article for today's discussion. Okay, thank you so much.